We now have come to the final and the most impactful session of the day, the big move, tomorrow's world. Where is the next disruption coming from? Moderating this session, we have Ms. Nidhi Pratapneni, SVP, Product, Analytics and Modeling, Public Affairs, Wells Fargo. Nidhi is a cross-functional business leader with more than 2 decades of experience. She forefronts the analytics and product modeling drive at Wells Fargo. Joining her, we have Ms. Subhadra Ummeda, Disruptive Innovation, Novartis. Subhadra is currently working for Novartis in the area of disruptive innovation. Her team, called NBSX, focuses on bringing in new age disruptive solutions into Novartis Business Services division by working with high energy startups, technology companies, and other innovators. Joining them, we have Ms. Krishma Singla, Head Global Data and Analytics, HSBC Asset Management. Krishma is an accomplished technical leader with rich and extensive experience of 20 years in providing innovative global solutions, leveraging lead-edge technologies in data science and artificial intelligence space. Joining them, we have Ms. Sandhya Chaudhary, Director and COO, Consumer Banking, India, Citibank. Sandhya is a strategic leader with an experience of more than 2 decades at cross-functional levels in the industry. Our next speaker is Ms. Ayaesha Gooptu, Head of Innovations, AMEA, Bacardi. After working in the food and beverage industry for over 12 years with iconic brands like Kurkure, Lay's, Pepsi, and Tropicana, Ayaesha moved to dabble with marketing in the aqua-bev space at Bacardi. From sowing the seeds of a consumer-centric idea to seeing it through till the product reaches the shelf, Ayaesha looks into this entire journey. Joining them, we have Ms. Anshuma Dogra Singh, Deputy Director, Information Technology, Applied Materials. Anshuma is a highly energetic, positive leader with 16 plus years of work experience in product development and programming. She's an effective global team player with strong interpersonal communication and presentation skills. Our next speaker is Ms. Priya Kapadia, Head Marico Innovation Foundation. Nearly 20 years of experience in business planning, brand management, promotions, and marketing operations, currently focused on innovation and passionately working with innovative startups to help them rapidly deploy their innovations in India. I would now like to hand over to our moderator to take the conversation ahead. Over to you, Ms. Nidhi.
Thank you. Thank you for launching this great session that is at the end of a series of very interesting sessions today. And it is truly a pleasure to be moderating this session with this panel of phenomenal women who have had such a diversity of experiences, and they bring a variety of perspectives to the table. And I say this from experience because we had a discussion just last week, brainstorming around what we'd like to talk about, and it was just fascinating spending 1 hour, just talking and learning from each other. So a warm welcome to all of you. And as we begin, I just wanted to set the tone by talking about, when we talk about the next big move and when we talk about disruption, I think we are trying to make a prediction, and often we don't know where we are going to land. If we look at some of the top companies today, they didn't exist 50 years ago. So, Google, Amazon, have come up during our lifetimes or during, just the last 20, 25 years. And sometimes the disruption is not about what is very visible to the customer. Sometimes it's some small skunk works mechanism that just overwhelms and takes over. And if you think about how Netflix just disrupted that whole space, it was about learning from customer experiences, preferences, and then using that and mining that to just upend the entire space. And similarly, we have Uber, Lyft, Ola, all bringing about a change in how we live our lives. And, would we have been able to predict something like that? I'm not sure. So, but we always try, because we have a fascination of going to the oracles and the seers and trying to figure out what the future holds for us. So that's an attempt that we're going to make today. So as we begin, we have this big cloud of COVID that hangs over all of us. And I know that there are many of us who have near and dear ones, family and friends who are impacted. So just wanted to send out a note of love and, warm wishes to all of you as you deal and grapple with all that's happening around us. I hope this 1 hour is a bit of a distraction to take your mind off some of these things. But at the same time, given that we are in this virus, medicine, vaccine themed phase of our lives, I thought who better to start off with than Subhadra, who is with Novartis. And so I'd like to bring in Subhadra to talk about, what are you in your space seeing as a key disruptor? I mean, 2 years ago, this would have been unfathomable. And from where you are positioned right now, what do you think the health and medicine space will look like, and how are you preparing to sort of stay on top of the trends that you're seeing?
Thank you, Nidhi. First of all, thanks to you and Kamikaze for inviting me here to be part of this amazing panel of women. Yeah, to Nidhi's point, stay safe. It's scary out there. But let me go to the question that you asked, Nidhi. I think before I actually answer the question, right, I want to just say that I'm amazed by the resilience that we actually show as a humankind. Most of the innovations, if you see from the past, from history, have come from world wars and, World War I and II. Our very first vaccine was after the Spanish flu World War, right? And then if you look at even the next age, communication, space technology, all of that is the foundation in World War II. So as unfortunate as the situation is, I'm more to see a glimmer of hope of what trends we are seeing in the pharma, in the medical and the industry as a whole of what's happening out there, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples of what's happening, which kind of can set a stage for what's looking like for short, medium, and long term, right? So in the short term, we have had to all rapidly adapt to this remote environment, a lot of digital first kind of thing. And this is not just in offices. This is from patient care as well. So patients who couldn't go to the doctors are adopting telehealth. So what was before 2019, single digit adoption of telehealth catapulted quickly into like mid 40s and 50% in terms of telehealth adoption. Now, what does that really mean, right? So there is beginning of an acceptance of something like this now that we have been in this stage for some time. There is also a lot of digitization that's happening across the environment, across the landscape, whether it is hospitals, whether it is clinics, whether it's pharma companies. That is what is happening right now, right? That leads to, in the medium term, a lot of data collection, which enriches the whole drug discovery and development journey. So we're going to have a lot more electronic health records that we can actually mine a lot more for data and look at when can we intervene? Can you do a lot more early diagnosis? can you get patients on trial faster, because you know where they are, even if it's anonymized, you can get to where they are with some consent. And then fast track the whole development process along with the manufacturing. So in the medium term, we're looking at data making an impact in a hitherto laggard world of pharma, right? Where we didn't actually adopt so much. Digital health has been around for 20 years, but it's only catapulted now in 15 months. So now we're going to actually gather their data, move into a retail kind of environment. And the longer term, I think, is a lot more tacit. While disruptions will come in various forms of technology, for me, the biggest change is the behavioral, the acceptance, whether it is regulators, whether it's insurers, whether it is patients, doctors, pharma companies who've been resistant to change are actually now a lot more welcoming this trend. And that, I think, will change the way we adopt the world tomorrow, whether it is wearables, whether it is managing your own, treatment and maintenance and all of that. So that's in a nutshell how I see the world moving and various drivers coming into the play.
Really, really interesting, Subhadra. And, we're seeing even now how we're all monitoring our oxygen levels with oximeters. And, everyone is just getting trained into the wearable and monitoring your own health statistics. And as you said, that results in a lot of data generation. But when we get into data and health data, and there's so much, privacy aspects around that. And that leads me to, a lot of the threat actors that come into play. And Anshuma is really in the right space to talk about, how the cybersecurity teams, be it in, pharma and medicine companies, or even in any company where, there is something that a threat actor can penetrate and gain benefit from. So how are you looking at, Anshuma, how are you looking at this voluminous data, but then from your perspective, the need to keep it secure, and what do you think the future will be like? As individuals, how do we look at privacy? As organizations, how will we look at privacy?
Yeah, rightly said, Nidhi. In fact, they say data is the new oil or the new water, and the third world war is going to be on water. And I feel that's really the data that, the third world war is going to be on. And before I even go to, talking about what the organizations are doing or what the individuals need to, I think putting a perspective on what the threat landscape today looks like would be a fair ask. And as you all know, we've moved towards Industry 4.0. And in the last 1.5 years, there has been so much of acceleration as we are talking about. Due to the pandemic, even Subhadra mentioned the same. There was a report from McKinsey, around 85% of the organizations have really moved towards the digital journey. And there are a lot of technologies which are seeing a lot of traction, like AI/ML, around $57 billion is something that we are seeing in the near future. IoT is going to see around $75 billion. Cloud, hybrid cloud computing is going to see $88 billion. But here, if you see the cybersecurity domain, it is predicted it will see about $6 trillion worth of investment, which really rings a bell. And, it's no brainer why everybody is really heavily investing in this space, because the threat landscape is becoming more and more complex each day. And I like to take a few examples, not from the past, but just 1 year which has gone by in the pandemic, when all of us were really working remote. There were so many infiltrations and so many, threats, so many breaches. You all remember about, the ransomware attack on Cognizant, plus, the Zoom bombings which happened, or the Twitter accounts which were hacked. Even the University of California, it was having an R&D partnership with WHO, and all the passwords were leaked. So there is no area or no domain which is really an exception to this today. The problem is grave, and all the CISOs are really losing their sleep. because the kind of attacks which are happening, we all knew about the Trojans and the malwares in the past, but now there are a lot more AI focused attacks which are really happening. So it's not just the humans who are there for the attacks. These are sophisticated algorithms which are there for the attacks. There are nation-sponsored attacks which are planned for a long time. In fact, one of these I would really like to quote, which was the biggest buzzword in the cyber world last year, was the attack on a cyber defense organization called as FireEye. They themselves said that they have been hacked because they were using a third-party software. So, and this kind of software was being used by a lot of multinationals like Microsoft and even the US federal government. The hacking happened around March and the discovery was in December. So you can well imagine, and this seemed to be a nation-sponsored attack. So these are the kind of threats which are there. And, but the good news is that the offensive AI is not winning. It's actually the defensive AI which is winning. So today, we are having these tools which are going into a lot of analytics, both inside as well as outside. We are detecting the insider risks. And these tools are really converging together to help the organizations move forward. And so are individuals. I would say a lot of individuals who are moving on to the digital journey, they are a little low on awareness. So awareness is playing a key role in really making the people aware about the kind of threats which are there and what they should be doing. You all know the passwords have become very tricky now instead of the regular ones, but we are even looking at going passwordless. That's the way forward. We're looking at authentication at every step. Initially, there used to be a secure firewall built in, and once you get inside it, you could easily access things, but that's not the case anymore. Everything will have a verification. The user, the tools, every step will have a verification, and you would have seen an OTP is generated, multi-factor authorization comes in. So there is a lot of work which is going in this particular space. It is seeing a lot of disruption, AI enabled and enabled by a lot of factors. Is one big thing which is very important is for organizations, for governments, for people to come together. The cyber threat intelligence has to be shared if we really want to win in this warfare. So that's the way forward, that we will all have to work together. No more competitors. This is like health of an individual. Security is like the basic need of an organization. So we will see a world where we all will come together to fight against this.
True. And I think when it comes to security, and I'm moving on to the financial services sector also, even the smallest fintech startup has to think of security, and the largest of the banks, national or multinational, have to think of that. And so, how technology plays a role in all of this is pretty key. So I'd like to move over to you, Krishma, to see, for you at HSBC, how are you looking at digital? How are you looking at, customer privacy and experience and balancing those two, requirements that have become almost, unanimous across all disciplines actually and industry? Customers want superior experience and at the same time privacy. So how are you looking at this, in the context of the fintech and everything else that's going on?
Right. Thank you, Nidhi. So digital has been a buzzword in financial industry for some time. Finance and healthcare, I would say, were the two industries who were the pioneers and the early adopters of technology changes. But yes, the last year has accelerated that journey. So I have been in this field for quite some time now, and getting the management buy-in, getting the budgets and investments into this area has always been a difficult task, because you need to kind of put down everything into numbers, and you need to literally show that what is the benefits which are going to give, what are the commercial drivers in a way to adopt digital or to adopt these technological changes. It has become very clear and very easy now. because, after the pandemic year, the companies have realized that three key things have come as recent trends, like consolidation, globalization, and sort of diversification. In a way, everybody wants to achieve those economies of scale. They want to kind of consolidate the things into niche areas. They moving around, offshoring things over to India, or kind of diversifying finance industry into insurance. So the thing is, nobody wants to put the same, all the eggs in the same basket. They want to diversify, as well as they also want to utilize the localization flavors in consolidated areas. India is very rich in talent today. People know that India is kind of buzzing with new incoming millennials, and the Gen Z people, and our population is more concentrated towards the young guys. So I'm seeing so much of consolidation happening from and India moving from doing the skunk work to the data-driven decision management, AI ML-driven work now from our country out here. Similarly, the other aspect which we have seen is on the customer side of it, right? So the customer expectations have always been changing, but then now a different flavor has come in. Like, I belong from investment banking. I could give you an example. ESG has never been such a buzzword, 2 years back or 3 years back. Nobody really wanted to think about responsible investing. People used to just think about, okay, I've invested $100, how quick you can make it to 100. That was the only point which was discussed around in investing, right? But now nobody wants to invest that $100 into a company which builds emanations. People want to kind of, invest more where renewable sources are being used, where, the companies are contributing towards lower carbon emission, right? So that kind of change we are seeing in, customers today. Another piece is about, how the technology is moving from a customer interaction perspective. People hardly used to use laptops earlier. We remember, sending out PDF reports by post to people, to investors. It was a lot of printing which used to happen in the banks. And HSBC is a 150-year-old bank, and they have been doing it for ages. Now that is all gone off. Even if you send an email with a 5 pages PDF to a customer or an investor, they say, what the heck is this? Who will read these 5 pages? Can you just tell me whether it was good or bad? Can you just make a chart to me? Just a bar chart which shows how I was doing last year and how I'm doing this year. So brevity, visualization, talking on mobile, easy accessibility. Every time they want to check, they are not interested in monthly or yearly reports anymore. Whenever they log in, they want the real-time status. So all of this can only happen when you bring in technology, when you adopt technology, when you literally breathe technology. So that's what I'm seeing in the finance world. And, we are adapting fast. The big banks are also adapting fast. And I would like to bring in this topic of startups here, the fintechs here, which is, these companies are excelling in their niche areas. Now, banks have changed that attitude. Earlier, you talked about privacy, you talked about security and data and everything, right? Okay, we are opening up. We're not bothered too much about. We will keep our regulatory things. That's fine. But other than that, we are happy to collaborate. We are happy to kind of build a big ecosystem. We're happy to invite individuals who have cool ideas. So it's really going for a positive change, I believe.
Yeah, and I think more than competition, as you said, collaboration is the word for the future, because and I will bring Priya in in a minute, but the startups, but then to deploy what the great spark that the startups have oftentimes those partnerships are very critical. So you said that we are working very fast, and I'll bring Priya in, and Priya is going to, turn the tables on everyone, because I think they probably redefine fast the kind of teams that she works with. So Priya, how would you describe your ecosystem? And you can just tell all of us that what you're doing is nothing like what you're seeing.
No, I hope not to disrupt too many people. I hope to kind of, gently and sweetly agree and disagree, and be a good person here. But I'll talk, since the topic is innovation and disruption, I'll just talk to you about how, we've been seeing the things happen, the movement happen in the innovation sector over the last 20 years that the foundation has been set. So I've been in the foundation for just 8 years, but we have enough and more data to assess. Let's take the example of one program that we have, right? It's the MIF Awards, which is, very well known in the innovation ecosystem for awards for finding potentially hidden and game-changing innovations in the country. Until 2014, definitely until 2012, but until 2014, a lot of the applications that we used to get were all from the corporate world. So for example, Citibank used to send us some 5 applications, and HSBC would send us a few applications, and JSW would send us applications. All the innovation applications would come from the corporate world. And that's how, and therefore we still have a lot of winners from the corporate world. But 2014, and more importantly from 2016 onwards, we began seeing a complete disruption in the whole arena. We used to get enough applications from the corporate world, but we began seeing very interesting applications coming from the social world and from the innovation and from the startup world. And if you look at the trajectory of the winners that we've been having in the last, 4 or 5 editions, because we do it once in 2 years, the movement has happened from innovations from the corporate world to innovations in the startup world. So that is the first disruption that we're seeing. We're finding a lot of innovations happening in the startup world, and perhaps corporates are not catching up. So beat me up if you guys don't like what I'm saying. So that's the first thing we're seeing. The second thing is in the startup world also, we're finding very interesting nuances and innovations happening. I remember when I joined in 2013, we had, the awards applications were happening at that time. And those applications that came in from the startup ecosystem were largely, app-based digital applications, and you download an app and that will change the world, because everybody felt like, Uber and Ola has worked, so why can't, an app to help somebody from getting raped, or an app to help somebody from, from diabetes will really help. So they all believe, and that was, I think, the beginning of data being the new oil or the new water, as Krishma and everybody mentioned, right? So I think that was where the whole thing began, and we saw a lot of innovations which are app-based innovation, but not necessarily meaningful and not necessarily successful. A lot of incremental innovations, a lot of Me Too's were happening. Then around 2016, we began seeing a very clear, a sector coming in. Education and medtech began being seen as the new big sectors for innovations. The whole ecosystem began building for them. When I say ecosystem, I mean government, I mean private sector, I mean partnerships, I mean other collaborations, I mean incubators, accelerators. All that began slowly coming up, especially for the education and the medtech sector. The next year, we began seeing innovations from agri. A lot of innovations began coming from agri. And a recent article that I read a month ago, and when I'm talking about agri in 2017, when we launched our agri program, we had no more than about 200 agri-tech innovations that were happening in the country at that time, and not all of them were innovations. So maybe 30-40 innovations that was visible. But then today I was reading an article which says at least 1,000+ innovations, and this looks like it's going to be the ed tech sector of the future. So that's the way this sector has grown. Then we began seeing innovations in very eclectic sectors like space, and a lot of organizations focusing on diversity, transgender in the social sector. Very exciting innovation, conversations happening, new sectors coming up, while the existing sectors kept getting bigger and more, how shall I say, mature. These were the upcoming sectors happening. Now I'm just seeing a lot of plastic, clean tech, a lot of how shall I say, water from air, water, potable water from ocean water, very, very eclectic innovations. But if you also look at the trajectory and the way the innovations have been going, all the innovations that I'm talking about are doing something to solve a specific problem with products and not necessarily with AI. So you have a lot of AI applications and a lot of AI innovations happening, but also you're seeing a lot of product applications happening from across sectors. And very excitingly, Nidhi, we're seeing a lot of collaboration between corporate and startup. We're seeing a lot of support from states. So you have a lot of state innovation councils that are set up across all the states in the country, and they work with startups and help them generate business from the government. You have Atal Innovation Mission, you have Startup India, Invest India, who focuses on supporting these innovations with the government bureaucracy and red tapeism that happens. You have a very, very well set up ecosystem of incubators, accelerators, scale up. Mentorship is becoming a very big thing. But I think what I'm noticing for sure is that there's a lot of action and a lot of excitement happening in the startup space, which is now slowly becoming very, very mature and eclectic. And we'll soon see a lot more action. We'll soon see a lot more action in that space.
And do you see the international community tapping into this? Or because when you talked about the innovation councils, those are more India specific. But the way InMobi has become, say, has a global presence, are you seeing that we are still trying to figure out how to bridge to an international scale innovation or disruption?
Yes, I think it's a very good question you asked, Nidhi. There are some sectors which have that ability to go international, because if you have your paperwork in place, especially your global patents, you can go international. So medtech is a very potent sector for going international, because innovations, it doesn't matter where your target group is or where your patient is, it kind of works. So an example I can give you, which is one of my favorite, Niramai, which is a replacement for mammography. It's been set up by 2 Indians in Bangalore. They have global patents. It's far cheaper. It's not invasive. It's a painless process, and you actually have far more accuracy as compared to your traditional tools of finding breast cancer in a person. And I think organizations like that can go international. But the flip side to it is, unless we have all our protocols and processes and securities in place, it's very difficult for India to be seen as an innovation hub, because we've actually spent a lot of time being very proud of being a Jugaad nation, and to rub off that Jugaad image and to bring in your affordable excellence in innovation is taking us time. But I think we've gone past that phase, and I think the next 5-7 years, we'll see a lot of excitement. We'll see a lot of conversations that's going to happen. We'll see right now, for example, in the agri-tech innovation, in the agri-tech sector, we benchmark Israel. I have a feeling very soon there's going to be a reverse in a few sectors, especially education, because we're a very complex country in India. So if we're able to find a solution for our country, I think it'll work for a lot of similar and dissimilar countries. And I think I think we're already seeing our innovations work in the other, Asia Pacific area, in Bangladesh, in African and sub-Saharan countries. We're seeing a lot of that happen. But I think 10 years, give us 10 years, and I think we will see innovations from the startup sector become global innovations and unicorns in their own way.
And one way that we could even see this spreading is, Sandhya is part of Citibank, and, Citibank has a huge presence here, and it's multinational. So, I think, Sandhya, would you say that you are able to pinpoint certain things that were unique to India and that you could sort of spread across your organization as, an idea that found a global, met a global need?
Yes, definitely. I think India is being seen as an innovation hub and a new emerging Silicon Valley, if I may say, in the space of Hyderabad, Bangalore, some of these locations, which are really paving the way and an ecosystem for nurturing the startups. So as banks, we look at these as clear opportunities and more than opportunities as partners as well, because it kind of brings two different worlds together, but trying to solve for the same objective of customer experience. And actually more than experience, convenience is how I call it now, because a lot of disruption innovation is always about what is the need of the hour, what is it that is lacking, what is a problem statement to solve for. And with some of the internet and digital access being made available to the customers through our Ambanis, it's also created and new needs and new expectations for our customers to be asking for more. Everything is like click of a button, overnight, round the clock, and simplified solutions is what they expect. And that agility, that pace is not easy for banks, traditional banks, to bring in and meet that customer need. So that's where some of these startups play a big role as partners and bring in that agility, bring in that innovation. I can share a couple of examples which have now, from an India perspective, picked up as global examples and things as best practices to follow. One of this is a relationship banking. So with a lot of automation, digitization, it's become that you go on the app and you bank on your own, or there is robo advisory, there is so many other things in the space of robotics and chatbots. But when you really have to serve your clients, there is that element of human touch. There is that element of understanding that client, how much ever AI can do it for you. But you do need that relationship and warmth and connect with the clients. So that is something through, a partnership with a startup. We have been able to provide City Hello, which is a video calling app within our City mobile app. And that's like a fintech partnership, which then helps the RMs, the relationship managers, to connect directly with their customers over a video call. And all of that is very well encapsulated within the data security, within the regulatory norms of capturing every video call, discussion, transaction. You could actually even just call over a video and make an investment transaction without the worry of, oh, how will I be held accountable if the RM does it? Does my money is safe? Is the data safe? Will we make investment, et cetera, et cetera. And anybody heard my call? So all of those regulatory data, cybersecurity things, well taken care of, because some of the large leading banks have that infrastructure to provide and support the startups with that. And the startups come up with those innovative ideas and agility, which bringing the two together creates magic for the customers and brings in a lot of value. So the relationship banking through, through our app-in-app concept has been a big success for our clients. And this was actually done before COVID. And with COVID coming in, we could clearly see that, people, you didn't need to walk into a branch. You could provide a branches banking to anybody, anywhere. And people were traveling remote, getting back into remote areas with their families, villages, etc. But they were served with the banking service wherever they went. So that's the beauty of partnerships. That's the beauty of ideation that can bring in. And all you need to think about is a convenience for the customer, an experience for the customer. So this is an example. There are other examples for entity banking where, even just onboarding an entity account takes, anything close to 15 to 20 days, and not because of the bank side, but even because of the customer to find the documentation, the necessary identity proofs, the directorships, and all the details to share with the bank to open an account. And here is something which, with the partnership of startups, which have also brought in a new concept of open banking, because in a very secured way, if a bank is able to share data with a third party, or vice versa, you do it through open APIs, that helps you create leverage on the data that we talked about. Some of you mentioned, my colleagues mentioned about data being oil. Definitely, that is an area to leverage. So with an open banking and an API connection with the third party and a startup, we were able to use the open sources of that startup. For example, the startup has had an API with the MCA, which is the company's board, a setup with the bureaus, an API with such other industry open source where the data is available. So if any entity wanting to open a bank account with us, we would just call into those APIs with the startup, the partner that we've engaged with, and that partner would give us all the data, all the information, all the documents for the client, which are already available in certain registered offices. And therefore, opening an account for the client. So the documents that the client needs to fetch and search and take the time to submit, we have access to that in less than 24 hours. And that eased the account opening process for the customer. Their part of the job got taken up in such a convenient way for them. And these are certain examples which are being picked up.
So you pretty much everything can be virtual, branchless, and our customers will get used to that as well. But the one sector which I don't know if people can consume virtual champagne or virtual scotch and vodka. And Ayaesha, I don't know if you're working on a disruption where, a distant, seeing a drink poured out in one place will give someone the satisfaction at the other end. But want to check in with you to see, how are you dealing with this? Many people would think that your sector is right stand, questions and threats. So what do you react to?
Thanks, Nidhi. Thank you so much. But like a lot of other sectors which has been affected by COVID with a lot of unprecedented changes, so has the food and beverage sector also been. Why? Particularly because the food and beverage industry actually focuses on on-ground and in-person experiences, and hence it has been impacted to a certain level. So like exactly the way you mentioned, you cannot give virtual satisfaction to somebody just showing at the other end that you are drinking a bottle of whiskey. Similarly, just the same way, there have been challenges, and now more than ever, it is important, therefore, for us to listen to consumers, anticipate their needs, and remain agile in meeting with them through disruptive innovation. So what are the rapid changes in consumer preferences that we have actually seen within the food and beverage domain? First is, like everybody mentioned on this call, is essentially digital. And we know that digital has become the mainstay of all consumer activities. And online data consumption has increased manifold during this period. Virtual experiences have actually, consumers have actually literally shifted. And like you started the entire conversation saying, the way Netflix has come out today, I mean, because of these virtual experiences, people have started sharing recipe videos on Instagram, masterclasses online. And look at us today, sitting here and actually having this fantastic, this session virtually, because it's at the end of the day a virtual experience. E-learnings have suddenly seen a spurt, and more than anything else, one thing that has definitely impacted our industry was essentially the inflection in e-commerce, driven by consumers actually desiring for safety, speed, and convenience. That is not only in India, but actually true globally also. The other thing which has impacted the food and beverage industry is bringing the outside to inside the home. So in order to save more and stay safe, consumers have brought consumption at home. They've increased their in-home consumption, leading to rise in, say, ready-to-eat, ready-to-cook offerings. And there has been a surge in at-home consumption in terms of celebrations, entertainment. There are virtual parties, there are games, there are drinking, etc., all happening virtually today. And the other thing which I have noticed and which is impacting this industry essentially is that there are consumers who are actually gravitating towards more trusted brands, if I can call it that way. Given the unprecedented scenario, people are inclined towards purchasing from well-established and trusted brands than just picking up anything that they find online. And therefore, how have we as a company been able to leverage on these changing consumer trends? So what Bacardi has been doing is, there are a couple of things that we've kept in mind, therefore, is keeping consumers at heart in everything that we do right now. Secondly, and I feel which is most important, is remaining authentic and transparent with our consumers. We know we can't get the exact same experience that we can give you, say, on an on-trade or an on-premise or a pub or a restaurant. But let's be authentic with the consumers. Let's be transparent with the consumers. And that is what they are essentially looking at. But, and something that Sandhya also mentioned, the importance of agility in a scenario like this. And that is where I think Bacardi actually lived up to or went beyond in terms of a company. We remained very, very agile during this very challenging COVID-19 times, keeping the consumer at heart at everything we were doing and taking many of our platforms and campaigns digital to meet consumer needs during this lockdown. There were bartenders who were actually not doing anything, sitting at home because the restaurants were shut. We aimed at engaging the bartenders, helping them learn, new skills, new techniques, polish their own talent further, and so that the community comes back even stronger than before when everything else opens up. So there were a lot of programs that we designed around that. Now, as art is a form of hope, joy, and any kind of manifestation, one of our brands, Bombay Sapphire, which talks about stirring creativity in terms of their campaign, what we did was we actually did a lot of campaigns online where we built it in terms of bringing artists from various fields to come around and showcase their creative talent, again, all virtually. But the artists were something as a community that we supported. Not only that, what we also did, and this has been our biggest win in this scenario, it has been converting an on-ground festival, something as large as the Bacardi NH7 Weekender, to actually bring it online and nearly reach almost 6 million consumers and allow them to basically meet a lot of artists, a lot of singers, a lot of dancers, a lot of activities, a lot of musicians. They couldn't have done otherwise because all on ground right now is shut. It was actually a beneficial thing for both consumers as well as for artists because they also need to be validated. They also need a platform to perform given this entire virtual scenario. So that is a way that Bacardi actually brought the experiences. We started doing mixology sessions to support people in terms of, again, the bartenders, to bring mixology to life to people who were sitting at home and wanted an experience that they have been missing. We were wanting to bring alive their parties, their birthday celebrations as much as we could, essentially, and delivering home kits which can be delivered to home, where people, they just have to sit at home, use those ingredients and make their own drink. So that's the best that one can do given the current situation. But digitization, like I was mentioning, and bringing the convenience to home are the two important aspects that one needs to essentially look into and do everything with agility, because every day the world is changing and there is a new challenge that everybody is facing from a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, Ayaesha, and I'm told that we have another 3-4 minutes to wind up before the Q&A. So I think we've talked about so many different themes, and we talk about the consumer and what the consumers will demand. But the supply side, which is the people that we need to deliver all of this, right, is also a very critical part. So just in the interest of time, I'd like to go around and do a quick Q&A. And if each of you could think of, the one phrase which you think will define the future, and what you need to be there leading in that future. If you could just talk about, 5 or 6 words only, and your closing thoughts. Yeah. So Ayaesha, I'll start with you and then we can go around.
Sure. So just taking off from where I was basically speaking on, I think 20 years hence or 10 years hence, I'm looking at the world to be more connected, more empathetic, and to the way that the world is changing. And I feel the world is going to have people more specializing in few directions, because there is just more and more that is happening around, and that's where the talent needs to be built. And as an organization, we are helping in keeping the community together, keeping the community connected despite these very difficult situations. And we hope that with this kind of an empathetic, being empathetic connection, we will emerge to be far stronger and, in the world that will be much better tomorrow. So I just want to keep it nice and short.
Thank you, Ayaesha. Who would like to go next?
I can go next, Nidhi, because I was so amused by what Ayaesha said. It was like, she just picked the words that I had thought for myself, and it's uncanny how we're thinking alike, right? So I was also thinking connected convergence. I think we put it in a different way, but basically convergence and empathy. But I just want to add one more line to that, Nidhi, if you don't mind. I know we're short of time. But I think what we're preparing for the world is, to Priya's point, the people who are getting educated today. My son today is going through virtual classes. The doctors are going through augmented reality to learn. So I think we ourselves today are preparing for a world that's like that. And our talent needs to actually think about that too. So which means we need to reskill a lot of our associates in those areas, because we are still where visualization means just standard tools in analytics, for example, right? So from that to catapult to this, I think we just need to think about it differently. But the world is going to be convergent, connected, empathetic, and more than that, instant gratification. I think I want to add to that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So let me add on to that. One word in which I would see the cybersecurity word would be SASE. And this is a little different kind of SASE. It is more about secure access over the edge, wherein we will see the network security and identity domains, all of them will be converging together. That's the way the industry is headed towards. The tool set is consolidating. We are going to see fewer tools. We are seeing the vendors are providing solutions which are going to be complete on the cloud. And there are a lot of players who are coming together to build a more secure world. And when it comes to the skill set, definitely the technology and the technical skills are there, which we have to learn. But along with that, I would say, there are these soft skills which are very important, and agility is one that we all spoke about. The other one I would say is active learning, because there will be so much of change which is going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years that you have to keep adapting and learning, and there is plethora of data to be even able to make sense out of that and say no and validate is going to be a key skill in itself. So I think these softer skills, along with the main thing of giving back to society, which we are seeing in the pandemic world, even students from universities and engineering colleges who are coming together, building apps to give back to society. I think that for sure, as a human, we will continue to do that.
Thank you. And
I'd like to just add one more thing. In fact, I'm completely in agreement with what everybody said, because that's pretty much what I was thinking. But I also feel the next 10 years, 20 years from now, probably we'll all be Avengers. But the next 10 years, I think we'll see a lot of lines blurring between corporate, social, startup, SME. I think they're all going to be one. I think they're all going to be one focus, which is focusing on solving challenges. And I think that's going to be really seamlessly done, and technology will play a very important role in the whole game. But I feel that there's going to be a lot of synergies, and there's going to be a lot of mergings that's going to happen between philosophies. And the way the youth is today, I think they're going to kind of force us to do things in that particular direction.
True, very true.
I think just to add on that, interconnectedness is like the key word that we heard. But building on that, I think the expectation and the solutions are going to be in the space of being simple, being safe, being smart, and more important, being swift, because change is inevitable, and the pace of change itself has exponentially grown, and it is unimaginable that each year on year, the kind of magnitude of change that we face. So the skill set of people will have to be extremely collaborative. Collaboration as a skill set something we have to see how we kind of bring that and force that in, because naturally people are extremely competitive vis-a-vis being collaborative. So how we bring that to, have that sense of appreciation and working together. And definitely, I also believe, in addition to what my colleague said, the socio-economic combination of that behavioral aspect will be very important, because everybody
Thank you. Yeah.
is getting into that space as well.
Krishma, just the last words from you.
Sure. I think in addition to what's been said, privacy and regulations is going to be a key thing. It's growing because of all what is happening in the interconnectedness kind of area, right? You need a bit of law and order. And we have seen that.
Yeah.
So I think that's going
so
to be
we'll have to rein things in, because constantly when things expand, you have to sort of create the boundaries. But thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion. And to wrap up, I will just say that I'm looking forward to a tech-enabled and compassionate Avengers kind of workforce. And if we have all of that, we should be safe, because compassion is key. And technology is going to be, table stakes for everyone. And so long as we are avenging the ills of society, we should be safe. But but yes, disruption there will be, and I hope we're all prepared for it. Thank you, everyone. Great talking to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, Priya, Anshuma, Ayaesha, Sandhya, Krishma, and Subhadra. It was indeed super insightful.